Good morning, everyone. It's Walter Parks, warming up here in St. Louis. Let me see what I can see on the screen here. Yeah, we got some folks tuning in. It's the weather seems like it's turning just a little bit, maybe temporarily. I walked out this morning to let my dog out, and it kind of felt like it was going to be nice. You know, you can tell when you're getting used to the winter when 30 degrees seems like a relief. It seems almost tropical, and but that's the way it is here. The folks on the East Coast, of course, got a snowstorm at this point. But you know, I shouldn't talk too much about the present moment, even though the Buddhists would like for me to do that. The problem with talking about the present moment is that maybe somebody 3 years from now is going to watch this, and they're not going to care what the weather is in St. Louis or New York on this particular day. This is a significant day in rock and roll history, and we'll talk about that in a second. But right now, I'm just in the mood to sort of stay in my own zone rather than kind of go back into what happened in the sense of rock and roll archives. But in the mood to play my old guitar, this is one I call Roadkill. I have two Roadkills now. And a little quick story about this one. I found this one online, and it was just basically parts. It was parts in a bag, and then just the body of the guitar and the neck were attached, and nothing else. Now, on these things, I'm not intimidated by getting parts in a bag, and I know how to put these together, and I know exactly which parts I want. So what I did is, when I got it from UPS, I quickly just threw on only the parts that I wanted, and the parts that I needed were the ones that you can see and use right now. Just the volume control, the tone control, and one pickup. Everything else I had dangling, and all the remaining innards were just kind of dangling by cables and everything, hence Roadkill. It was sort of a mess in much the way you would see an unfortunate animal splayed out on the highway. But I tried to make something nice, and I don't know that I've made anything beautiful out of it, but I think I've made something comforting. And I think that's what we're all looking for. At least anybody who's productive is looking for something that matters, something that makes a difference, something that influences and affects people. I am, at least. I've kind of, that's all I've really, really wanted in a sense professionally. You know, when we're younger, our goals are different. We want to be famous or whatever. Some people get in rock and roll because of the sex and drugs. Not me. I just wanted to be well known. But now I just want to have a positive effect on the world, and I want to do that as often as I possibly can. And yes, that means playing live and that sort of thing. But I hope this guitar has a positive effect on you. I'm going to take you to the swamp. This is one from my Swamp Cabbage repertoire called Sugar House. slipped on a book. That's a unlikely excuse, but I lost my beat there. My book kind of got underneath my little stomp box, and but here's the book that I slipped on, and it's a good book to slip on if you've got a slip-on one. It's called the Okefenokee Album, and I've put it aside because I wanted to tell you about a new project and a song that I'm releasing this coming week with Rob Curto. The performance in the video is not quite ready, but we do a song called Catfish. And in the book, written by Francis Harper and Delma E. Presley. Delma Presley was a professor at Georgia Southern College in Statesboro. He and his wife were nice enough to host me and talk to me about their research of the Okefenokee Swamp. Now, I'm researching the music of the swamp. People lived out there, homesteaders, white homesteaders of Northern European heritage lived out there from mid-1800s. Okefenokee Swamp, by the way, is in southeast Georgia. Mid-1800s through the mid-1900s. The U.S. government chased them out. Essentially, if you can sum it all up, and they were the contention was they were depleting the animal supply, essentially hunting the place out, and so they got kicked out by the government. And but white folks out in the swamp was one part of the story, but black folks were out there quite a bit in the 1700s, and I found that out from William Bartram's travels, written in the late 1700s, and he speaks of escaped slaves from the rice plantations in southeast Georgia making their way to the swamp. They figured they'd fare better there than working on the plantations, and the plantations were brutal. And maybe I'll talk about that, what I know about that a little bit on another episode. But anyway, so catfish, they say, is popular in the swamp region, as Hamp said. Hamp is Hamp Mizell. He died in, I think, 1946 or something. He was born in 1880 something. And he was a hunting guide. He was a swamp expert. He was a fiddler and a banjo picker, and of course, he lived out in the swamp. So he was the guy that you would contact if you wanted to go out hunting in the swamp. And I think eventually he worked for the logging companies that shaved the swamp, or nearly shaved it bare. But anyway. Hamp says, if a man can't play catfish, he ain't no banjo picker. A peculiar word in the song is snout. So I asked him what it meant. And so let me give you a little brief background here. The man asking Hamp is Francis Harper. Francis Harper was an intellectual sort from the North. He was a botanist and a researcher. He was, I think he had gone to Cornell University or taught there or something. And he lived in the Philadelphia area. So he took a year-long safari, if you will, to the Okefenokee Swamp. Imagine going all the way down there. I guess the road was US 1 at that time in the late 30s, early 40s. And it must have taken forever. So he asked what snout meant, and Hamp Mizell said, those are smellers, but we call them snouts. For example, barbels. I don't know why barbels clarifies anything, but maybe you guys know. Let me know. The second and third stanzas were once heard in the Appalachian Mountain States, but the first and final ones are pure Okefenokee. And here's what I sing in the song. I'm going to do it in just a second, but so the first and final ones are pure Okefenokee. See that catfish swimming downstream, mouth full of butter and his gill full of cream. All right, first of all, let me stop right there. If you're visualizing the final product, if you're visualizing what the natural resources can make for you or yield for you, That's a little bit Buddhist in a certain way, or the Buddhists tend to do it in reverse. If they see a piece of paper, they go, well, I see the sun in that paper. I see the tree. I see the pulp. I see the ground that the tree grew from. But this is kind of reverse Buddhism here, which you might expect from Southeast Georgia. See the catfish swim downstream, mouth full of butter and his gill full of cream. So he's imagining that catfish on his plate. Caught that catfish by the snout, and I throwed that catfish all about. Okay, now here's the last one. Jaybird sitting on a hickory limb. He winked at me, and I at him. I picked up a rock, and I hit him on the shin. He said, by golly, don't do that again. The way I sing it. Now, I want to just tell you a little fascinating bit about research and this kind of thing. This is all I had to go on. I didn't know how this song really went. All I could tell from the writings of the Okefenokee was that there was this mythical song called Catfish, which was the litmus test of banjo pickers. If you couldn't pick catfish, you weren't a real banjo picker. And I took that on as a challenge, but the problem was I went looking for catfish and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I thought I had it, the song turned out to be Catfish John. Somebody said, well, that's a Grateful Dead song, which it was, and I held on to it anyway. And Rob Curto and I recorded it on our upcoming CD. Margot, maybe you can flash a photo of that. I'll probably ask you to do that a couple of times. Margot is my wife, and she's our producer, so to speak. She's got 14 television screens in front of her, and as the broadcast flies by, she decides which one of the screens, one of the cameras she's going to use. She's settling into this single camera shot, but we have at least 14, maybe 40 cameras here in this room that she's choosing from. So I feel like doing Catfish for you. This is my translation. Oh, so I found it on an old recording of a band called the Poplin Family Singers out of Charleston, South Carolina. Something on an old label called Folkways or something like that. And then you just listen, and 100 times of these things to try to decipher the lyrics. And they kept singing about Banjo Sam, and that gave me a cute clue. Well, maybe there's another song called Banjo Sam. Sure enough, something back east that came from Mississippi Delta was also called Banjo Sam. So this is a kind of a combination between an old Okefenokee lyrics and a song called Banjo Sam, but let's just call it Catfish for right now. 1, 2, 3, 4. That catfish going upstream, mouth full of butter, gill full of cream. Caught the catfish by the snout, and I turned that catfish inside out by me. Banjo Sam, by me. Banjo Sam, come on. Sitting on a hickory limb, I looked at me and I at him. I picked up a rock and I hit him on the shin and said, by God, I don't do that again by me. Banjo Sam, mommy. Banjo Catfish. Woo. That's fun. That's fun. It's first I worked that out on my old 1929 banjo. It's a Vega banjo, and then I translated it to the guitar. And when this thing's really kind of honking and really ripping through an amplifier, especially on those outdoor festivals, it's good fun. So Rob Curto and I are going to be touring and start our tour in May. We had one lined up for March, and then the COVID kind of got all frothy again and started having an attitude, and I got sick. I didn't have the COVID though. I had something else. I don't know how I could have anything else with all this masking we do. But sure enough, I got something, and it was bad. It laid me low for a couple of weeks. But we've got a new video that's going to come out next week. I probably won't be on the air. I'll be en route to New York in that area, and it's just when I'm moving, sometimes it's a roll of the dice. It's whether or not I can get a good signal. So we're going to debut the video for Catfish this time next week. And but that's a fascinating read. If you have any interest at all in the Okefenokee Swamp, pick up this book by Delma Presley called the Okefenokee Album. And this is also, I talk about this at length and play from it in my special for the Library of Congress. And there's, you just can Google Walter Parks and Library of Congress, and you'll find that. They did a 20-minute special on me, and I'm real proud of that. We did that last year during the COVID. And I have a feeling Margot's going to post a link. But let's see who's listening, and thank you very much for tuning in. Steve, Ray, good morning, everyone. Yep. Jack, yep, good. Weather, no matter. That's certainly true, you know. You got to keep going. The folks in the Okefenokee Swamp certainly did. But I talked yesterday. I talked to I checked in on Bill Chesser, who's the last remaining living male Chesser who lived out there in the swamp, and he's now 90 years old and still kicking. And he was telling me about how they used to prepare the hogs and everything. How they used to. Well, it's not a pleasant story, but it's how they had to survive out there. And they would deal with 4 hogs or so at the same time. But it was a massive, massive big deal. Some of the other men from the other islands would get together and all pitch in and help. But and they would put the meat in cans, and he gives a whole story about that and how they dealt with the lard and used the lard. It was just, you know, hearing him speak about life in the Okefenokee Swamp, it reminded me, ironically, of a lot of the, you know, the neo-hippies who are living off the land and living off the grid. They really, there was no waste out there. They used the skin, they used the lard and the oil, and they used the meat, they used the bones. Everything was used. And, but I find that irony, I think if those folks were still out there in the swamp, they would probably have very politically conservative proclivities, you know, but yet the irony is that to me, the irony is that the neo-hippies today, or anybody who's living off the land and probably might have liberal proclivities, they're coming to live in a similar way. So it just makes me wonder how different we really all are, and maybe it's just a bunch of rubbish that we're being divided so much. Or we're not being divided, we're allowing ourselves to be divided. So sometimes I think we're very much in control of that, but I don't want to talk too much this broadcast, but I've had fun playing this one. I'm going to put this one down. Again, this was This is my guitar, Roadkill. It's made of, the top is sapelli mahogany, sapelli mahogany. Oh, somebody's asking what's inside of it. This is a cotton batting, um, and it's just all cotton. It's kind of turned dirty and dark from having it in there. It's a completely hollow body guitar, and I need to put some new cotton in there. So when I go back down to Mississippi or Alabama, I'm gonna find a whole new batch and stick it in there. Um, Tell you a funny story about that. This is all kind of dirty and browned out, but um, it's I put it in there to keep the guitar from feeding back. I love to play these things through loud amplifiers, and what happens is if you do that, the top just resonates so much it feeds back in a very ugly way, and it's not a desirable kind of feedback. It's out of control. So I've kind of figured out how to tune it with just the right amount of cotton in there. But that reminds me of an interesting story. You know, people are so full of BS opinions these days, and they just, I don't know where people are getting their opinions sometimes, and I guess it's just from, Google or whatever, and we think we're experts. I remember taking a shirt into a dry cleaners in Jacksonville Beach a couple of years back, and it was a white shirt, completely white shirt, and it said 100% cotton on it, and it came back all yellowed. I got it from the dry cleaners all yellow, and the guy said, "Well, this is actually the look of natural cotton. It's yellowed." Um, I said, "No, you're wrong. You're wrong about that. This is not the way cotton looks on the vine, so to speak." And he argued with me and so on. About two weeks later, I was driving through North Carolina or South Carolina. I know you guys know where this is going. At the right time of year, I think it was in the fall, and there was some cotton growing in the field. And I asked a farmer, "Look, can I have one of your smallest bushes? I just need it to educate somebody about something." So he let me just pull it out of the ground. So I brought this cotton bush into this very knowledgeable laundry guy in Jacksonville Beach, so this thing had roots and all, and I just plopped it on his desk, and of course it had perfectly white cotton all over it, and I said, "Behold the completely white natural cotton," and he had nothing to say to me, and but that was a good way to make my point. Just bring in the source. Go to the source. That's what I like to do. And here's another one. This one I've got some dyed batten, and I'm not even sure this is 100% cotton. I can't wait to get it out of this guitar. This is another Roadkill. Hold on a second. Basically, it's the same type of guitar. Somebody has spray painted the top of this one red. I can't. When it warms up, I'm going to take this paint off of it very delicately, because the plywood that's on the top is very thin, and or the veneer layer is very thin. But I have to get this off somehow because I can't stand it. And I'm going to put a very fine nitrocellulose amber on it. It's going to be beautiful. And then I'll take all this. I don't know. It doesn't look like real cotton to me, but it's batting from something. I think it's old blue jeans or something. But I stuffed it in there temporarily. But I'm going to have some Mississippi cotton put in there as well. I'm going to put it in there. Ain't nobody puts it in there for me. So this is a guitar I'm going to work on when the months get a little warmer. But this one I love. This doesn't quite have as much hair out of it as the other one, as you're going to see. Now, I was telling you about a special day. What this is. Now, for for those of you who watch this way, down into the future, it will never be the future for you, because it will always be in that moment. And that's just really deep, isn't it? It's just so deep. But this is I am broadcasting today, January 30th, I believe, 2022. And today is the anniversary. Which anniversary, I don't know. But it was the anniversary of the day that the Beatles played on the roof, for which would become the movie, or the culmination of the movie that we're all watching right now, called Get Back. So can you imagine playing on a roof in January 30th? In London, I don't think it was quite as cold as it is right now in the States. But they were still in furs and red raincoats and all of that kind of thing. I worked up a kind of a swampy version of a song for you to commemorate, and it's tricky. I don't know if I'm gonna quite get it, but let me get a little hair on this thing. Can y'all hear that? Y'all hear that? Woo! a tricky song. There's a lot going on. You've got the yeah, and then you got and then you got so all that stuff is happening right on the same chord, and you got to just make a choice. But that's one of the fun things I love about kind of arranging something for guitar. That song has no business whatsoever being done on a solo guitar performance, but you know, that's the fun part about it, is just kind of trying to figure out how to convey it, you know, and catch as many of the parts as you can. I love doing that. I'll work it out really good at some point and do a video of it. But I love playing this one. It's the edges are the original color. I don't know if you can see it, but it's just a slight brown, a little amber brown. It's beautiful. It's just gorgeous. But some guy just spray paint in the back and the top, and it's awful. The back of the neck is original, which is perfect. These things are extremely. I don't buy them in good shape. If I find them all beat up like this, that's what I want, because I want to be able to set it down on a table. I mean, when we were in Spain, I didn't even have enough. I had to keep my baggage down to a minimum. I didn't carry any guitar stands or anything like that. I did a tour of Spain. I just would stack my guitars on top of each other, and I don't want to have to worry about them. So yes, I have a bunch of vintage guitars, but they're not kind of precious in one sense. But I love them. Walter Parks here. This is Hymns and Hollers. Why not doing a hymn? I think and justify the name of this get together with you. coughing fit, but like I said, I'm picking up the double meaning of coffin fit, you know, in a song about dying. Sure, does your coffin fit? Margot's giving me some water here. Thank you very much. She's going to keep me from dying right here on the air. Well, what time is it? Well, I don't really mean for you to tell me. I picked up a record the other day called. Well, I go to this great store here in St. Louis called Vintage Vinyl, and I head straight for the gospel section. Look at this. This is what time is it? I don't, sometimes the assistants will say, yeah, these are some great singers. This is the real thing. And I say, I don't care about the singers. I just want to listen to the sermons. So I pick up as many of the old gospel sermons as I can. If I want to listen to, I'm just fine listening to old spirituals and Mahalia Jackson and that sort of thing. But the sermons are where I really get my rhythm, and that's where I pick up the rhythm, and that's where I pick up new rhythms. And the cool thing about sermons, at least now this is my assessment of the kind of world of storefront churches from my limited experience. It seems that a lot of the storefront churches are kind of like what we think of in the singer-songwriter world as open mics. And I went to a storefront church. The last one I went to was in Lake City, Florida, on Main Street, and there would be one preacher after the other, and my buddy Matt Lindsay and I slipped into the back of it. It was an all-black church, and we were driving through town, and I heard the music wailing before I even saw it, and the doors were open. It was Lake City, Florida. It was hot, and I said to Matt, "I'm not going in there. It's a black church." And he said, "Well, come on now." He said, "There's no harm in that." And I didn't want to go in there out of respect. I just didn't want to. I thought these folks just need to be able to worship in peace. They don't want me coming around there. But, we slipped into the back pew, and kind of folks would turn around and look at us. I think they were just kind of making sure we weren't there to create trouble. And after 30 minutes or so, two white men who thought we were just kind of going to be anonymous and onlookers, and we were asked to the front of the church to introduce ourselves and to meet everybody. And it was such a wonderful moment, because 30 minutes before, I had been saying, no, I don't want to go in there and upset these folks, and they invited us to the front. But turns out that was only a treat for about 30 or 45 minutes, and then another preacher would come up, and then 30 or 45 minutes after that, another one. And so they would pass around the collection plate during their 30 or 45-minute time, and then they probably, I'm guessing, divvy up the collection take with the house, and probably were on their way to the next town. And it was it seemed to be sort of a tour, a traveling troubadourship of sorts. This concept of the traveling ministry was still alive and well in that world, and this was only a couple of years back. But so I got fascinated. I've been fascinated by preachers all my life, and my father used to play the white preachers on Sunday morning just to annoy me, to get me out of bed. But the ones I was really fascinated with were the black preachers. And there's nothing better than driving through South Carolina or Georgia on a Sunday morning and finding a good one on your AM radio dial. And check out the rhythm of this man. And I want you to listen to the congregation. Let me get the mic over here for you. Now this is exactly why I like old guitars, because for what I'm getting ready to do, I'm just going to put this thing on the floor. Well, it's not why I like old guitars. I like old guitars that are kind of beat up, and they're not that precious. So let me see if I can put this mic a little closer, and you can listen to this sermon. This is, who is this? This is not this one here. This is Reverend Jasper Williams, Jr. It's Church Door Records, and it says what time is it, but it's straight up midnight or noon or something. I don't know where Jasper Williams is, and I didn't have time to look it up on Google. He could be in the south, he could be in the north, I don't know. Wait a minute, here we go, here's a clue. Well, it doesn't mean much. Oh, it does mean something, because in the older days, the record company apparently is Budget Record Distributing, 404 area codes. That's Atlanta, as far as I can remember. Is that right? 404, am I right about that, Atlanta? I think it is. Oh my gosh, I got to get this one. You know how they advertise the other records in their collection, in their library? It says, other LPs by Reverend Jasper Williams. I fell in love with a prostitute. God forbid. So, oh my gosh, I got to find that one. But, so here we go. Now but just listen to the responses of the congregation. And here I'm going to put this one down.
What of the night? Watchman, what of the night? And the prophet answered, the morning cometh, but also the night. Amen. Amen. I want to talk this morning about what time is it? What time is it?
Take the time to read good.
Back during the biblical days, one of the urban offices or positions that was mandatory for the preservation of law, order, and safety was the position of the watchman.
Amen.
It was the duty of the watchman to patrol the streets of the city through the course of the night.
Amen.
It was the duty of the watchman to prevent thieves and vagabonds from prowling about through the dark. The watchman was to shout out an alarm whenever there was imminent danger. The watchman was to shout the time of the night and to inform the citizenry of the various changes in the weather. The people of the cities, when they listened from their bedside to the stern, firm, regular steps of the watchman passing by their doors, they felt a sense of security and would thrust themselves in confidence into the arms of sleep.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Thrust themselves in confidence into the arms of sleep. Let's consider that. There's a guy walking around outside keeping watch over the neighborhood, and the people feel so comforted they thrust themselves in confidence into the arms of sleep. Wonderfully said, and this record is no doubt just replete with moments like that. But Kristen Barner is listening from Charleston, South Carolina, which I may have to be in pretty soon. I'm going down that way for a celebration of passing. Some a lady who was one of my fans of my music went to the by and by, and I'm going to try to squeeze in a trip down there to say my say my prayers and so on. I want to read from my version of reading from Scripture this morning is a book that a good friend of mine wrote before he passed. This is a book that is also on tape, and I did a little bit of recording for this. They used some of my music in the background, some stuff that has not otherwise been recorded. But this is a book that he wrote. Tom Townsend was my friend and still is. In this I will find beauty. Unfortunately, his son passed away. And when he was dealing with this passing, he wrote emails to himself, or just every day he would write an email. And he eventually compiled these emails, and the email was just the easiest way for him to save this stuff and archive it. And this is one that this is a reading that I think about all the time, and it's 3 or 4 paragraphs. So stay with me. It's good to go into this on a Sunday morning. Walter Parks, by the way, here with Hymns and Hollers, coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm reading from Tom Townsend's In This I Will Find Beauty. This is Tom's daily passages, thinking about and grieving, pondering the passing of his 21-year-old son. If those who have died are off in an all with God powerful and peaceful place, why don't they just tell us? Why keep us wondering and heartsick? I'm going to repeat that. If those who have died are off in an all with God powerful and peaceful place, why don't they just tell us? Why keep us wondering and heartsick? Maybe he is telling us. He's referring to his son who's passed away. Maybe he's screaming it, and we are the ones who don't understand. We are the ones who can't pick up the language. Think about it. Presumably, he is a superior being relative to us. He knows more, sees more, and understands all, but we can only understand so much. In the scheme of things, our knowledge and ability to communicate are very limited. We are toddlers in the universe. Alex, his son, is all grown up. Grown-ups can only convey so much to a toddler. Imagine a 55-year-old corporate CEO trying to explain what his day was like to a 4-year-old. Imagine him explaining that the merger with the competition should work well according to the pundits, but that he has reservations about the reported assets of the other corporation because he is aware of some well-hidden problems among their Asian properties. How could Alex explain to us that shapes are actually colors and invisible? Theoretical concepts are tangible. Physical furniture and words are darkness, and time doesn't exist, and we are actually older than our ancestors. He is probably speaking, but we are 4-year-olds listening to Einstein. No matter how hard he tries, Einstein can reduce his knowledge only so far to try to help a toddler understand relativity. Interesting. And this book, which I really suggest that you might get a copy of, or at least go to Audible Books. There's probably a link to the book, and you can order this online. And it's just rich with all those things that many of us think about in our time of grieving. But it's positive. Tom is a positive person, and he looks forward, and he gives us ideas of how we can keep it moving, and make sense of our lives and make sense of the passing of others. But I don't know if this will happen. Yes, well, it happened because I have a bookmark here. But when I first got this book, check this out. Tom gave me a copy of this before he passed away. And you know how you do with a book, you pick it up and you open it up and you just open to a page and you take a quick look at it. You might be in the middle of it. And the first page I turned to was email number 45, page 59. And it says, Walter, my close friend from high school sent me an email. So, and I want, the actual text is really not material, but I'm just saying, Tom was writing about me. I was his close friend. And that was the first page that I turned to. And you guys can dig deeper for yourselves. I haven't done a holler, me and my ego. See, knocked the guitar, and if that had been a pristine condition vintage instrument, I would have been a little upset. But it's not. And I can let it go, as the Buddhists say. Feel like doing a holler. This will probably wrap it up. I'm Walter Parks, coming from St. Louis, Missouri. Some interesting things. I'm going to be continuing my work with the Okefenokee Swamp pretty soon. Other things on the horizon. I think I'm going to be performing in some fashion with one of my groups for the opening of the Bob Dylan Center in Tulsa at the beginning of May. At the beginning of March 4th, I'm going to be here in St. Louis at a wonderful listening room called the Focal Point. I'll be playing solo, which I love to do. And maybe I'll tape that live, I'm not sure. What else? In May, I'm going to be trying to put together a tour with Rob Curto and do some dates back east to celebrate our new release. Margot, maybe you can put up a picture of that cover. I know you did it earlier, but this is something we're taking pre-orders on now. Rob's an accordion player, and we've kind of rearranged a lot of the music, some of the music from the Okefenokee Swamp. We did a couple of our own original tunes as well. And it's a fascinating record. It was really, I recorded it right here in this room, and we mixed it in New York. But this is, it's something I hope you can pick up. We're taking pre-orders on it right now. So, I haven't done this in a while. I like to do it. Let me get it. I mentioned earlier that I called Bill Chesser the only remaining male who sang in the Okefenokee Archive collection. He was a boy at the time, and in the late 30s, early 1940s, and now he's a 90-year-old man, and he's agreed to sit with me and talk to me a little bit more, and I just can't get enough of of learning about the way folks survived and lived out there, and it's daunting to think of how they did it, but that was their life, and these folks were not, when you think of white folks coming in mid-1800s, these were not plantation owners. These were not well-to-do folks in terms of, like, they were not agriculture barons. They didn't have slaves. There were a lot of those folks didn't even know about slavery at that point. But they were homesteaders. They were making their lives by hunting and farming on the land out there. And this was one of the songs that they sang. It's an old song that was attributed as an old-fashioned song. And it's pure Okefenokee lyrically, but the chorus, I think, actually came from the Mississippi Delta region, because it was a song that Bessie Smith sang, and with a different version. But this is called, starts with a holler. It's called Ain't Nobody's Business But Mine. nobody's business but mine. Well, I'm going to my death, 'cause no one's on my path. It ain't nobody's business but mine. Well, I thought upon my faults. I'm gonna break till I get strong. But it ain't nobody's business but mine. Well, I'm going to my death. No one's on my path, and it ain't nobody's business but mine. No, it ain't nobody's business but mine. Oh, it ain't nobody's business but mine. I tell you, that one just kind of opens up all the chambers in my head, and hopefully it opens the chambers of y'all's heart a little bit and makes you want to stay alive and keep going. I'm sorry that I kind of coughed a little bit in the middle of it, but I'm still not over my rheumatism or whatever I caught a couple of weeks ago. It just keeps coming back. It wasn't a COVID, or at least they say it wasn't. And anyway, I'm going to leave you with another one. I've got really two kind of important projects going on right now. My work with Rob Curto, who's an accordion player extraordinaire, and that's called Swampalachian Trail, which is kind of, we're taking, like I did earlier, we're taking those old Appalachian tunes and I kind of swampify them. Kind of, like, what's that? Yeah, so. Kind of nice. Picture doing a real like. It's not in the correct tuning, but we have so much fun with that. Rob's kind of playing it more traditional Irish, and I'm kind of coming along with that sort of Northeast Florida swampy groove. It's a nice mix, hence the Swamp-Appalachian title. And I'm gonna leave you with this one. This is a piece from another project that I have called Walter Parks and the Unlawful Assembly. Y'all know about it. A lot of you have the record. Stephen Williams and I, the partner in that endeavor, have taken a lot of old spirituals and redone them. We do Amazing Grace, Steal Away, Follow the Drinking Gourd, Old Blind Barnabas, and others. But this is one that I wrote myself on my lonesome. Actually, not on my lonesome. I wrote it with Stan Lynch, who was the former drummer and the driving force behind Tom Petty and the Heartbreaker through all of his early hits. Stan was a wonderful collaborator, and just kind of when I got in Stan's studio down in Florida, this next tune just kind of rolled off the guitar, and I'll show you what it's like. It's called Shoulder It, and I'm going to leave you with this one. Somebody asked, here's a geek question: is the spray on the guitar poly something? I don't know, probably. I'll get it off. And it'll just be what it is. So, yeah, I got to be careful because the top layer is very, very thin. It looks like about 1/16 of an inch, but that's enough to work with. So here we go. This is one called Shoulder It, and I'm going to leave you with this one. It's Walter Parks coming to you from St. Louis. I know I hurt you such a long way back. Some people keep pushing on that. You came on the mercy train because you laid the track when you shouldered it. When you shouldered it. Shouldered it, oh, you shouldered it. Everybody knows we need a change of heart. What's it gonna take to open our eyes before we bust the load across the ground? We better shoulder it. Better shoulder it. We better shoulder it. Oh, we shall overcome. Does that mean me or you? Everybody needs somebody to blame. So we go and load our gun, but does the freedom to give us the reason to. Oh, tried to see who is down and out until I had to live a life like that. And who am I to tell you to get over it until I've shouldered it, 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 until I've shouldered it. Everybody got a shoulder it. Woo. Really looking forward to playing and touring that group out. That's called the Unlawful Assembly. Walter Parks and the Unlawful Assembly. And that is some kind of good, playing with that six-piece group. Ada Dyer on voice, helping me out. And Paul Frazier playing bass. And Michael Bellar plays organ, Hammond B3 organ in the Fender Rhodes. And Stephen Williams, my collaborator, partner, and producer of that project, plays drums, and it is fantastic. I'm going to leave you with this one. This one goes out to Kristen Barner and David in Charleston. This is I'm not particularly addressing this to them. I'm just saying thank you for tuning in. But this is rather, a lot of people would quote from Scripture, and this is Scripture. It's just a Scripture of my friend. This is Tom Townsend, and Tom's story, or why I know Tom, is that we were when we were kids, teenagers. I was in a public school in Jacksonville, Florida, and acting up and clowning around and just doing anything I could to entertain myself and assuage my boredom. And this was around the time when Jimi Hendrix passed away, and everybody was walking around through the halls doing peace and all that kind of thing. There were ecology buttons and ecology little flag patches you could buy, and everybody was wearing bell bottoms, and the band Free had released All Right Now and all of that sort of thing. But I was a miscreant, and my parents yanked me out of Lakeshore Junior High School and sent me to a private school. And I was kicking and screaming at first, and then I realized one of the things that I loved about the school that I was in, it was a college prep school that my parents paid dearly for and couldn't afford it, but I had never met other people except for very few in Lakeshore I'd never met. Well, I'd never been in a situation where everybody surrounding me who was my age were just infatuated with knowledge. They just wanted to learn as much as possible. They couldn't get enough of whatever the subject was. And so Tom and I found out that he was a musician. Tom was one of my classmates, and we started. Whereas other kids were mowing lawns for money, we played cotillions and demolay parties and church dances. And our first paying gig, was at a Mormon church. My grandmother was a Mormon, and so she got me into playing the Mormons. And a lot of people say the Mormons dance. They played these marches and so on, and they would dance around in a circle and wave flags and so on. And we had to play a lot. It was just almost 20 minutes straight of just playing one march after the other. And then we would play other songs, popular songs. But the only sort of restriction girdling that we ever had from the Mormon church, the elders. It was good. It was good money. They called us all the time to play, but they said they didn't like our light show, and our lights were. We got called. We got called to the side one time on our break, and this was out of the Armory, on the National Armory on Normandy Boulevard, way out near, or maybe it's 103rd Street. I can't remember. Way out near 301, and they said, your lights, you're going to have to just set your lights and leave them. And we said, well, why is that? And our lights were suggestive. That was the only explanation we got, is that they were suggestive. So God forbid anything be suggestive. But I'm very grateful for those Mormons, because they gave me an opportunity to play, and they loved us. We were good kids. And so Tom and I, we went way back. He would move to St. Louis, and I would move to New York. And we always had this plan of playing in a band together, and eventually I would move to St. Louis. And I just kind of foresaw that happening, which I did. I'm in St. Louis now. But Tom isn't, or at least not in physical form. And at one point in our final days of preparation for me to come to St. Louis, he picked me up at the airport and dropped me off at my wife's parents' house. And I had one more thing to tell him after he dropped me off. I called him. He answered the phone. He was in his car, and then the phone went blank. Tom had gotten shot, unfortunately, while I was on the phone with him, which sent me into a spiral of guilt, because I thought, gosh, I had distracted him. Fortunately for Tom at that point, he didn't pass away. He got shot in the head, and the bullet went through him in such a way that it didn't paralyze him, and he could speak. And when he came to a couple of months later, and fast forward, was playing at a gig with me in St. Louis, he said, no, that wasn't it. I wasn't distracted by the phone call. I dropped the phone when I saw him coming towards me. And Tom would not die of that wound. He ended up dying of cancer, so it was Tom's time. But so here's one I'm going to leave you, when he was grieving about his son, and this is kind of positive. And this is why I'm leaving it with you. It says, we profess to, but this is email number 190 on page 250, and this whole book is just, like I said, filled with these positive kind of reasons to get up and go and stay in the game of life. We profess to believe in helping others less fortunate, and we back that up through the United Way, or sponsoring a needy family, or taking our old clothes to the Salvation Army. We also tell one another that we are not judgmental of others. But then we draw the line at beggars. We say, get a job like I did. We say, you'll just spend what I give you on drugs. He goes on to say, Lazarus could have been a deadbeat stoner who brought it all on himself, for all we know. It's not mentioned how he came to be a beggar. It never comes up. Is it relevant? I don't think Jesus ever judged the poor according to how they got there, but we do. I'm going to leave you with that. It's Walter Parks. This is Hymns and Hollers. This has been a good one. I enjoy our time together, and I appreciate my loyal supporters, and I appreciate y'all just kind of spreading the word around. I do need your support in the terms of a Venmo or a PayPal. And if you can't do that, get a CD and get one for your friends, or just tell friends about it. Subscribe to the YouTube page, Margot says, and I love knowing that you're out there, and I love knowing that I'll get a chance someday to come to where you are and play live for you. It's happening, and we're planning for a tour, an East Coast tour in May. So let's do it. Let's stay in touch. Send me some venue ideas, and The ladies are womaning the phones, and they are at the switchboard right now ready for your call. Thank you very much. Walter Parks.